What's up, everybody? Frank Maialetti here with the inaugural episode of The Hot Seat. All right, guys, my first guest today, if you're a pool fan, he needs no introduction, but we're going to introduce him anyway. He's a 2019 One Pocket Hall of Famer. It's the Freezer, Scott Frost. Scott, what's up, buddy? How you been?
Good. How are you, man?
I'm doing
Good.
great, pal.
Honored to be here on
I
the hot
appreciate you
seat.
coming on. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
what's new, bud?
sir. Not much, man. You and I were talking on the phone a couple weeks ago, and ironically, we both, you mentioned that you wanted to start a podcast, and I was in the process of kind of wanting to somehow get out. For me, it's really ironic how my life has come full circle. It's just pretty wild. The story for myself is really cool, and we were talking about it, and I felt like maybe it might be cool. People might be interested in hearing how I ended up where I ended up, and I felt like it might be a good way to set your platform off on the hot seat.
So tell me about how you got started in pool.
Yeah, man. Nobody in my family. I have two brothers, two sisters, um, two half brother or one half brother, one half sister. Nobody in my family plays pool. Nobody, nobody in my family ever went to the dark side. uh, as we called it back in the day. But I was a basketball player. I played all sports like most kids, right? In our era, I was born in '75, so I played baseball, basketball, football, soccer year round, and I think I left soccer when I was like 12. I just wasn't quite enough action for me as far as the ball is concerned. But I played basketball, and that was my true passion. And in the winter time, it would snow so much, get so cold. I grew up in Des Moines, Iowa, that I actually made a mini court in our basement. We had a half unfinished basement. So when it got cold, I mean, all I did was play basketball. My entire life was basketball. Um, had a couple opportunities to go to a couple of schools after high school, and I was competing mostly with my coach's son throughout my no, it was my junior and senior year, and I was just about to turn 17. I'd never missed a practice. I was a very hard worker. I loved cardio. I loved everything we did, right? We did suicides every morning and every afternoon, and I was typically the first one to get in the gym and the first one to leave. But at this time, my brother was in the Air Force, and he is 6 or 7 years older than me. His name is Tom. He was in the Air Force, and he was stationed in Rome, New York, and we lived in Des Moines at the time. And he had gotten really sick. I want to just think it now, looking back, it wasn't that big a deal, but when we were at the time, it was a big deal. He'd gotten really sick, and I'd missed one practice. I'm going to try and keep it short. I'd missed one practice. We flew to Rome, New York, where he was stationed, and visited him. And I got back, let's just call it a Monday, and we had a game that Friday. I practiced all week. Nobody said a word, working with the team. But the rule was if you missed a practice, and I had a note from my mother that you couldn't dress for the game. You could go, you could be a part of the team, but you couldn't dress for the game. And I'll never forget it because it was a pivotal moment in my career. But I was walking onto the bus, and it was an away game, and I had my gym bag in my hand, and I had my sweats on, and I'm literally about to take the first step onto the bus, and Coach Glenn he was a big guy too. He was a tall guy, and he says, "Frost, where the fuck do you think you're going?" And he said it just like that, and I turned around. I said, "What do you mean, Coach?" He said, "You're not riding with us. You're not going to this game. You missed a practice." And I said, "Coach, the rule was that I couldn't dress for the game, but I can be a part of the team." He said, "You're not going." And he does like this motion.
That's kind
And
of
I
funny
like,
because most sports teams they want you to be part of the team whether you're playing or not.
yeah, and I agree. And it was a little bit heartbreaking. We'd never really had any problems, but he had like favored his son, I was like the third tallest person on the team, and I played the point guard position a lot, shooting guard at times. I rotated positions. But anyway, yeah, I agree. So I'm standing there, and all these emotions just kind of went through me. And I literally did a 360 like a windmill with my gym bag in my right hand, and I whipped it at him. And he was like a foot taller than me. He was a big guy. I was a skinny toothpick, right? I weighed like 165, 6'2". I whipped it at him and luckily missed him. I went over, picked my gym back up, and just walked off. And it was really weird. It's like 4:30 or 3:30 or 4 in the afternoon. School had just gotten out. So I walk off, and I literally walk about 100 feet. I walk around the corner of the building outside the gym. And on the other side of the building was a friend of mine named Corey. I won't say his last name, but he was a little bit more of a troubled kid, right, in school. We all had those friends that were like the good people, the preppy A students, and then we all had those friends that were on the other side,
They were
right?
the ones I told mom and dad I was hanging out with Friday nights, and I'd hang out with the B side people.
Exactly. Yeah, we would go to the country and have bonfires and drink and have our fun, right? Those were the ones. But I walk around the corner and Corey's right there, and I obviously I told him what happened, and I'll never forget him like pointing, and he pointed and he's like, "Let's sneak in over there." And there was a pool room, and it was about 2 blocks. It was close. It was about 2 blocks, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. And then literally he didn't have to twist my arm. Anyway, so we sneak into a pool room, and there was I'll never forget it. We walk in, and it was Don McCoy's pool room. Um, Don McCoy was a world champion, won the world championship in '79, but I didn't know this at the time. But we walk into the pool room, and there's a cute girl behind the bar, and there's one guy
Roping you in
setting.
now.
Yeah, there's one guy sitting at the bar. The pool room is dead. Daytime, there's nobody in there. I don't think minors were even allowed, but I walk in, and the guy sitting at the bar says, "Do you play pool?" And we're like looking around. We're gonna play pool. I've never really held a cue before. We had a bumper pool table when I was a kid, but I never played pool. And he says, "Do you play pool?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I play pool." Oh, geez. Anyway, so he says, "I'll play you some 8 ball, $2 a game." And I'm like, "Come on, let's play, right?" And we played. I had $22 on me. He beat me out of the $22 in record time, literally record time. When we were done, he's like, "I didn't know you were left-handed." Or I didn't. Yeah, he said something like, so you're a lefty." And I'm like, "No, I'm playing with my right hand, right?" And he's like, "No, that's left-handed." So I tried to switch back after like 20, 25 minutes, whatever it was, and I couldn't. I was already too used to playing with the opposite hand. So that started it. That was it, right? The next day, I snuck back in. That guy's name was Tom. All the people in Des Moines know who that is. He was kind of he was like he was a semi-professional golfer. He could have played the Nike Tour, played real high-end golf, but he was real smart, real good at making money and hustling, and came from a good family. Um, so I just went back, and finally, they kicked me out because I had to be 21. Would sneak in though, over and over and over, and my parents did not like it. They did not like any part of it. Um, you know, don't blame them. So fast forward, uh, they give me a pass to start coming in there. The owner, God bless him, Don McCoy, had a huge influence in my career. The old school people are going to know who he is, but really, really a high end player. To give you an idea of how good the guy played, Cliff Joyner in his prime, and Don went to Olathe, Kansas to play him. They played 300 a game, which doesn't seem like much now, but back then. 20, 25 years ago. They played 300 a game. They played for like 14 hours and broke dead even,
Wow.
playing one pocket. And this is when Cliff was in his prime, and Cliff will say that. This guy just didn't go a lot of places. He was kind of one of them guys that just, well, he didn't. I don't even know that he loved the game, but he was just so talented and so great at it. Had a great mind for the game. So I worked with him for a long time, and I had a plan to go on the road, get better in my hometown. I played everybody I could play, and that kind of leads you to the next chapter, right? My parents definitely didn't like it. I had a dummy in my bed, and Tom would pick me up. I barely graduated high school.
What does
Barely
a dummy
graduated.
Scott Frost look like?
I had a gorilla mask and one of those miniature basketballs for downstairs for the miniature hoop. So I would put the miniature basketball in the dummy mask or in the gorilla mask, and then I just like combed its hair because I had hair back then,
Yeah.
and I would just put it in the bed. But I would make, I'd make it look like me, and it worked for a long, long time. Um, except I got more creative, right? I ended up stealing. I When Tom couldn't pick me up, I ended up taking my mom's company car.
Oh wow.
So that she caught me one night. She caught me. She was taking the laundry into my room, and she's like, I guess the dummy just wasn't set up quite right. She found out. She ran to the garage, and she was worried about me, and she noticed her company car was gone. It was a night to remember. I guess somebody just reached out to me. There was a cue that I was playing with that night, and it was a sneaky Pete. It was a hustler cue, basically just a. It looked like a house cue,
Yeah.
and there's a back door to the pool room, and it was like 10:30 at night. I was playing a guy nicknamed Mike, the UPS man, worked for UPS, and we're playing 50 game 8 ball, and it was literally like a movie. Time stopped for me. She comes walking in the back door. It's like the whole place froze. She said, "Scott Frost, if you shoot that fucking ball, I'm gonna break that cue over your neck." And that's what she said, right? And of course, I shot the eight. I shot the eight in, and she literally come running over in front of all my like friends and people that I looked up to, your local top players. She come running over and snapped the cue, but not over my neck, thank God. She snapped it over her knee and uh, and dragged me out of the pool room. Literally drug me out. Um, so, but at that point, I was hooked. She couldn't stop me, and it was unfortunate. I mean, I kind of put him through a little bit, but I was already just about to turn 18. I think I'd already turned 18 at this time. The first time I played was just before I turned 18. That incident with the pool room. So anyway,
I don't think I've ever met a pool player whose parents didn't want them to play pool.
whose parents didn't want them to play? Yeah. So I mean, I think that's an interesting point that you touched on. I came from Des Moines, Iowa, really blue collar, a lot of hardworking people. My family was business oriented. My father was senior vice chairman of what was called Wells Fargo, or excuse me, Norwest Bank, and had merged with Wells Fargo. They were definitely humble. I had a great family, but they were concerned. I was in sports. Now it's different, right? With Matchroom and everything that's going on, and Predators doing great things for the juniors. That's what I'll look at there as far as that's concerned. But everything that's been marketed with what Matchroom does and how the look of the sport has grown, it's a lot different now than it was then, right?
I agree. When did you? When did it really hit that you were a world class player? Like you were not just a local guy that can play well. You were a guy that can beat top players in the world.
Yeah, I mean, my nickname, they're going to laugh if people ever see this podcast, all through the Midwest. My nickname was the Go Off Kid from Des Moines, because I didn't want a handicap. I didn't want a spot. I played anybody and everybody, and I found ways to get money. That's a whole nother story. It was a bad deal. I'm an idiot, but it changed my life forever. But anyway, I didn't deal drugs or anything like that, but I got in some trouble stealing some golf clubs. Uh, Anyway, yeah, I mean, I got my head beat in for the better part of probably 3 or 4 years. I think 2020, or not 2022. I think I was 21 or 22 when I won the U.S. Open. When I won the U.S. Open one pocket, they started to see that. they supported me regardless. They loved me, but they started to see that I had some potential.
Yeah.
Um, the problem was back then versus now, which you just touched on, is that there wasn't really any good outlets for a pro player. I started out playing nine ball. I played it at a very high level, the highest level. I mean, I beat Shane Van Boning out of, like, I was probably the best bar table player in the world for a period of time. I beat Shane out of 30,000, I think, playing even nine ball. Granted he was younger. Um, but the problem was there was a lot more money nationwide for somebody young that played really good one pocket versus somebody that played really good nine ball. Like, I could go to every city in the country, and get a handicap, people not really know who I was till 3 weeks later, right? I could be in a city for 3, 4 days and be in another town an hour down the road, and they wouldn't figure out who I was for a few weeks.
Well, that was definitely days prior to the internet.
Yeah. So there's good and bad there, right? And I know I'm kind of jumping around, but that's really where it was. And to answer your question, I think I was around 21, 22, where my level, it didn't take me long. I had a lot of natural ability, but I was playing an obscene amount of pool, right? I was literally playing, I think, 10 hours a day, every single day. Every single day. I took all my energy from basketball and put it into pool. All of it, all my focus, all my energy, everything just went from one direction to the other.
I don't think I've ever was ever in a tournament in the '90s and 2000s that I didn't see you, either in the action room or
Yeah,
in the event. Just
yeah,
I remember you being everywhere. In Philly, I remember seeing you in New York, Derby. If
yeah,
there was action, Scott Frost was there.
yeah. I was, and I was really good at it at the time, right? You know, I guess that's why we're doing this podcast. Everything kind of is really weird looking back at it because I was fortunate to get the end of the era where we were using phone books and maps, right? I went everywhere for 10 years with a map and a phone book. We didn't have cell phones, which, looking back, I personally am a huge proponent of. Life was so much simpler back then. That being said, technology's here, and then the transition happened, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, hanging out with you, I've seen that you don't get 20 minutes of rest. Your phone is just constantly
Yeah,
going.
yeah, it's going.
Text
That's
messages
partly.
and people just wanting to bullshit and
Yeah, and I'm a talker, obviously, as well, right?
oh, I mean, it's part
I
of
like
it.
to communicate. I'm big on communication. I think it's important, especially if you're working with people. I think it's really important to be on the same page, right? So I'm big in communication as far as that's concerned, whether it's text or phone call. Um, yeah, I think you're the same way, Frank. You're
Yeah,
you're really good with that, and I think that's why you're successful with what you do with the APA and everything else that you do.
I appreciate it.
Um, yeah. No, so I guess I'll just carry this on. I mean, the reason we're doing this is I want to explain, like, how hard the transition was for me because I had built over time a character when I was on the road. Behind the scenes, people that really know me know that I'm not like some big intimidating character, or person. But when I was on the road, it was really a one man show for me. I tried to have partners. I did have partners, but there was times where, and I would stage arguments, that, I did everything. The influences in my career were like Billy and Cardona and Jack Cooney, and those are two
Legends of the
prob
sport.
the true legends, right? I was so fortunate to uh, to have them kind of mentor me in the map and phone book era, right? I think that, well, they had a huge influence on me. Billy, in my opinion, in most people's opinions, was probably the best commentator, and I don't even want to say probably. He was the best commentator, um, of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, or for
Yeah,
AccuStats and Pat Fleming, right? Carl Boys just did that Efren Reyes shot we all saw, that series where the Z kick
Z
shot.
shot. Yeah,
Billy's commentating that when that happened. So I always watched. Billy and Jack Cooney from a close range, right? I watched how they acted and their mannerisms, and we're always going to be ourselves. But I really, really, really wanted to be um, somewhat of a colorful commentator and good with my verbiage, and it took a lot of time. That being said, going back to being on the road and all of that, a lot of great things happened, a lot of bad things happened. I was making a lot of money and I was spending a lot of money. Um, Through the South was probably the biggest for me. I got to stay with some pretty powerful people that ran big poker games at AmVets clubs, and they would Billy put me with them. Billy and Cardona put me with them, and they would put me with little people that they were connected to throughout the South, and they would put me in positions where I was playing people. I mean, I played a guy in Gadsden, Alabama that owned the electric company. Like he owned the power for Gadsden, Alabama, and the guy had like a 6 foot bar table, not the 7 foot. And I mean, it just quickly, I played him 50 or 100 a game. He was a big old farmer type guy, and he had one couch in this huge power building, right? He had one couch and this 6 foot table, and I think I stayed there close to 5 days. We would eat together. He would go home and sleep. He'd leave me in the couch. I slept on the couch. He'd come back. He'd do a little work, and we'd play all day, right? And I just beat him profusely, and he loved it. He loved it, right? That's just one story. I've hundreds of stories, not quite like that, but where I was just making money at every turn. And then, right? And then what happened is literally, I'll never forget. I'm driving down the road and I'm talking to somebody on a cell phone, and I can't remember who I was talking to. And I said, "Man, it's over with, right?" And he's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Well, the road is it's done. The money is like overnight stopped." And what happened then, and I know this for a fact because I was in it better than anybody, is that right there. That camera. That camera really, really affected people that were making money on the road. Um, and I made millions of dollars. So that happens. When that happened, I had to make a transition. And I think you could probably help me. What was it, Frank? 2006. I think it was around 2006, 5 or 6, when the first camera phones started coming
Yep.
out. Um, And when that happened, I knew immediately. I devised a plan. I knew immediately that I had to start to go pro, even though I was like probably one of the best players in the world at the time. But I had to market myself completely differently. The problem was that I developed this character when I was on the road that was really kind of a hard-shelled character that you know if somebody didn't play me, I would have been shocked because I was really good at getting under their skin, really good at it,
Yeah,
right?
I've heard a few times somebody refer to you as a smart ass, or
Yeah,
that's
sure.
putting it lightly.
Yeah, no, of course, and I get it, right? And that was kind of the stigmatism that was attached to me for a long time, and it was by design.
Yeah, you're putting
That
them
was
on
that,
tilt before they even hit a ball.
yeah, and it was really right. I didn't play pool for trophies. I never had it planned or set up to play pool to win titles or trophies. I played pool to make money. And I think the top young players out there now are, it's a job. That's what they do. So for me, it was a job, and I just had to put on a show and act. I was really acting as much as I was playing, and I think that was the key to my success. But people didn't like it. I get it, right? I get it. And that was where the challenge came in because over time, 96, 97, 98, I'm building this character and I start to actually become this character, right? Like it's hard to be something when you walk into a pool room and then be something else when you're not there.
Shut it off or turn it on when you need to.
Right, because the problem was really my entire life I was in the pool room, right? That's what I was doing. So it wasn't like I always had a home, I wasn't one of those guys that lived out of my car. I lived pretty good. I did well, but that character was starting to really become who I was, and I was recognizing that um, in in 2006, 7, 8, and it was tough for me. That's what a lot of people don't know is for me it was really really tough to make some type. I couldn't figure out who I was. Right, I didn't really know, like because I knew who I was in my basketball years and my family years, but I'd kind of transitioned into this hard guy. Um,
So was it
that
would it
I
be accurate to say where did Scott Frost end and the freezer started?
Yeah, yeah, of course, and that was. I still struggle with that because it I'm older now, luckily. I still struggle with that, right? Because the old me that, and I'm not going to use excuses that I've been through everything, and it's not the case. Uh, I'm fortunate. I'm so lucky to have found a gift that I have. But when you live this character for so long, coming out of that was really a challenge. And I think every day I try to be a better person, and every day I question some of my decisions. I think that's probably all of us,
And then
right?
you got guys like me that don't worry about it, Scott. Let's go do this anyway.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
sometimes the
Yeah,
bad influence.
I'm easily influenced.
Here,
That's
drink
another
this.
problem. I'll have a cigarette while we're talking about that. Um, Yeah, and which this is like I don't drink when I'm home. I don't do anything. I'm very boring. I'm very private. Eric and I think that's the key to our success is, uh, 18 plus years now. I initially when we got together kind of set some standards that I thought it was more important that we're private versus public. And I think that in order to, I don't think you can have two people that are out in the open like that. It's just really tough. But our privacy works. She's completely the opposite of me. She runs the show, and she's luckily saved my life. I love her more than anything in the world.
I
My
think
best
another
friend.
thing that sets you apart from some of the players is that you have some of these road players that they gamble and they gamble high, 10,000, 15,000 a set, and they get paid and they just blow all the goddamn money the next week. They win
Yeah,
10, 20 grand on Friday night, Saturday night they're at the casino betting it on black. I've always known you to make smart money decisions.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I wasn't always that guy.
Nah.
It's funny now. Yeah, I was really bad, and I'm not going to mention names. We all know who's great and who's not great with their money.
Yeah.
But I was not great with my money for a long time. And if was, we all have regrets when we're younger and make a lot of money and blow it. But if I was who I am in the last 15 years, um, I would. I don't even know that I'd be sitting here on this podcast. I would have plenty of money. I
Yeah.
made upwards of $20 million easily,
Well,
easily, no joke. I mean, just in two people, I won 2 million in hard cash. That's two people. I beat hundreds of people out of 30s and 40s. Excuse me. But I had a bad gambling habit. I was a casino guy for a long, long time, and I beat that Dippy Dave in Vegas. Geez, it's been a long time now, 15 years ago, and I beat him out of about 1.2 million, including side bets.
jeez.
And I was wild, man. I was a wild motherfucker, dude. I was wild.
So,
Um,
so how do you play in a game like that and your asshole does not be super tight when you're shooting a ball? I mean, you
man,
got a
I
million
lived for
dollars
it.
on the line. How does Scott Frost get down on the table, look at this shot, and go, "Don't fuck this up"?
I My asshole was super tight. But I lived for it. Like, looking at me now versus then, it was just really weird. I was a cold-blooded killer. We're getting ready to release a match with me and Efren, the first time me and Efren played. Uh, and this is actually the last time we played in 2016, but we played in 2008. And I just player reviewed that. We're getting ready to release it on possibly my YouTube channel, this as well. And my style to now is completely different, but my living style is also completely different, right? So to answer your question, I never thought about the money when I played. And I was raised by Billy and Jack Cooney, and that was one of the major things. When you're playing for big money, if that's what you're thinking about when you're playing, you're already cooked. You're cooked before you even start.
Yeah.
Um, but I'll tell the quick story. I was in Vegas, and we're beating this Dippy. We started with 50,000. He knows the story now, so he can't be sick anymore. But Billy called me. I was in Alabama. Billy called me, and I was in Alabama. And Dippy had beaten, I think he beat Boosty, he beat Alex Pagulayan, he had beat Corey Deuel, he beat everybody playing one pocket and nine ball, getting big handicaps. And so Billy calls me. I'm in Birmingham playing, or no, I'm in Mobile playing some tournament. And he calls me. He's like, "Hey, you got to get out here." And like an hour later, Dippy calls me. Viffer, Poker After Dark.
Yeah.
Most people know the story. And I don't want to rehash the story, but it has a lot to do with me gambling and why I quit gambling in casinos and how my life changed and my money management. Um, we took a $50,000 shot and I went out there. I did not think I'd have to play him 18-4. And I gave him 18-4. That's how he busted everybody playing that way. I ended up beating him 10 ahead sets. I never lost a set over a period of about 7 or 8 days. And there was hundreds of witnesses. Um, I
18
mean,
to
it's a
4, you
pretty,
got to play jam up from the start. I mean, you can't fuck up. You can't make a mistake.
yeah, it was crazy. Um, it was actually really crazy. It was probably the only lawsuit for gambling in professional or in pool as well. It came to a lawsuit.
Jeez.
Um, that didn't end up happening, but I sued him and his family. But the first set was for 50,000, and if he beats me, then we're done. We're just taking a shot. But we knew our price on the money was huge, right? We knew that he was going to double, triple the bet, blah 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 blah. And I beat him in like 45 minutes. I beat him in under an hour, 10 ahead, giving him 18-4 the first set. I beat him in under an hour, and I never even looked at Billy. We were playing at a place called Pool Sharks in Vegas, which is now Griff's,
Okay.
and this place had a pit, and it had one table in this pit, and it was like a 6 or 8 foot wall all the way around this table, and fans can sit up all the way around this thing. And I win in like 45 minutes, and he takes the heat and says immediately, bet 100, right? I didn't even look up at Billy or Jack Cooney and Mark Betour, Jack and Efren's backer at the time. They were behind me. I didn't even look up at him. I said, bet, right? So we bet 100,000, and I beat him in 3 hours. Playing so back in the day, you would play headsets. The
Yeah.
best player was typically going to win that way. Now everything's short races and better for video and all that stuff.
Yeah. Good for
I was
television shit.
Yeah, I wasn't big on that stuff. I was more of an endurance player, and probably why I look so bad now. But anyway, yeah. So I beat him again for 100,000. This is just how the first night goes. I beat him for 100,000, and then we play a set for 150, and I beat him in like 5 or 6 hours. So we're done for the night. He pays off, and we go to dinner, and it's the biggest score in one night of my life. And I'm like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And my phone rings. He's like, same time tomorrow, bet 250, right? I'm like, fuck. I better go home, better get some rest. We're in Vegas. I was thinking about going to the club. So that didn't happen. Billy and I go get a room at the Aria. Aria had just opened up, and he gets his own room. I get my own room, and I get ready to go play the next day. Long story short, the final set we played is I know for a fact that I don't want to say for a fact, but I know it's got to be the biggest cash set in recent memory anyway. Um, the final set was for 320,000 total,
Jeez.
and it was posted. The money was posted. We put it in a lockbox at the Aria. He was so mad. Um, this was the final one pocket set. He was so frustrated. Barbara Cooney and I, Jack Cooney's better half, she was the smartest handicapper in money pool that there ever was. Jeremy Jones knows who she is. A lot of guys know who she is.
Yeah, I've heard him.
But
I've heard him
she
mentioned
was
before.
unbelievable. This woman had a natural instinct for matching up, knew knew exactly where Jack was in every match, knew how he could win. She didn't play pool. It was just unbelievable what she could do. But anyway, it's just her and I were waiting in this back room in the poker room next to Phil Ivy's room in this real dark room with one guy waiting on Dippy to show up with this post money because we'd heard that there was rumors of people coming in and robbing us, right? Word got out, Tom Dwan, all sorts of famous people were there watching us play, and word had gotten out that they might try and hijack us, might try and rob us while we're playing. And we were putting chips on the light, hundreds of thousands of dollars in the safe. Money was everywhere. So we ended up going to the Aria. That was my idea too, because Viffer was playing in big money games at Phil Ivey's room, which I was invited to and would watch quite a bit, which was a private room inside the Aria. So we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting and we're waiting. And he's texting, I'm on my way. I'm on my way. He walks in. He has this giant duffel bag. They're all fives, tens, 20s.
Jeez, it
$300,000.
probably took you 45 minutes just to count the friggin' money.
No, it took about 6 hours.
No
Took
shit.
about six. Yeah, it took about 6 hours. We went through this money just over and over and over, and I think that was part of his plan, right? And anyway, go back and I beat him. I win the set. Um, but then we played some nine ball. I played him the same way that Boosty played him. I gave him the five, the break ball in hand, 50,000 a set, and he stiffed me a couple sets. And I know this sounds petty, but at this time I was betting my own money,
I gotcha. Of
and he stiffed me a couple sets, and it got bad, right? It got pretty ugly. A lot of people know what happened. I'm not going to go into it;
course.
it's too detailed. But I was waiting there. Billy finally left town. I was waiting there to get paid. Every day he'd text me that he's going to pay me, blah blah blah, or this or that. Finally asked me to meet him somewhere, and he wasn't there. Kind of jerked me off. Anyway, so um, that night when he jerked me off, I went down to the casino. I started drinking. I was on dead tilt. I was on dead tilt. I started drinking, and fuck, it was bad. I had like, what did I have? I had like 450,000 in chips in my safe. And Erica's up there in the room at the Aria, and we're staying in a suite, a corner suite. I stayed there like a month. Um, but I take one $25,000 chip down. They're called cranberries, right? I take one down. It's a $25,000 chip. I flag it out or I color it up and get some change, and I start playing, and like literally like I'm betting the pass line on the dice table, and in like no joke, 10 minutes to 25,000's gone.
Oof.
And I had a lot of speed. I bet really high on the dice table. So I'm frustrated. I tell the pit boss to call my room and have Erica bring down 50,000. And she brings down two more $25,000 chips. And I put her through hell. I feel so bad. Um, she comes down. She's so quiet, such a good girl. And she just gives me the chips, right? She turns around. She's in her sweats. She's like all tired. And here I am drinking and like going crazy. Anyway, she goes upstairs, and I proceed to blow that 50,000 in probably an hour, somewhere around that. Anyway, long story short, I get down about 180. I get down 180,000, um, and now I'm starting to get into really dangerous levels, really dangerous. And
Yeah, I mean, you
I'm,
played for what, 3 days to win all that cash, and now you're giving it back to the casino.
yeah, no, it was actually like 7 or 8 days, all
Okay.
day each day. Yeah, but right, exactly. And I'm very intoxicated by this point. Like 3 or 4 hours gone by, and I'm really intoxicated. You can't even. You're not allowed to have a chair when you're at the dice table in Vegas. That's like you can't have a chair.
Yeah.
They brought me a chair. They
Wow.
brought me a chair. So anyway, I switched sides. I started knitting around and being a little tight. I started betting the don't. I was betting the max. Um, the don't pass is basically you're betting with the house, but you're always paying a price. You've got to beat the come out roll. It's kind of complicated.
Mm.
But anyway, I sat there 33 hours and sobered up, felt terrible, felt like I was dying, watched the sun come up. Now it was like 28, 27, 28 hours. It was under 30 hours. Anyway, I ended up getting every quarter back but 5,000. Every quarter but 5,000.
Not a bad ordeal to sweat it all back out.
No, but I was hurting like 3 days of just like licking my wounds and just kind of going through mentally what I went through there. And to this day, I've never gambled in a casino again. To this day, on my own money. I've used other people's money and had a little fun or something.
Yeah, of
But
course.
people that know me, I have zero interest in gambling in casinos, and I can't stand people that do. I feel like they're just fucking giving their money away. I absolutely hate it. I hate the places. I know how crooked they are. I know how brutal they are, how ruthless they
Yeah.
are. They don't give a fuck about you. And so that saved me really.
I
That
can
moment
confirm that
there.
because all the times that you and I have ever been in casinos, we've never even walked towards anything. We've
No.
always been
Yeah.
just hanging out, and so
Yeah.
you go through this life. You know, you're gambling. You're playing when you want to. Has there ever been a time where Erica had said to you, "Hey, Scott, I need you to slow down," or you know,
Yeah.
you're not making some good decisions here? And,
Yeah, I mean, when she first got with me, I was wild.
yeah.
She knew it, right? I was wild, but she was with me everywhere we went. Like for the first couple of years, excuse me, she was with me when I beat Dippy. She was, she's kind of like Billy and Cardona's daughter. Like
Okay.
he and her are very, very, very close. He's not doing well right now, by the way.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
People, if people believe in God or whatever your beliefs are, that's on you. But he's not doing well. Say a prayer for Billy. He had his third back fusion. And
Oh,
I guess that's what podcasts are about. We jump around. But
yeah.
he had his third back fusion at 82,
Jeez.
and he's not doing well. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, Billy was like her dad, and we started traveling together for a couple of years, and she got a good dose of what I do, and it's not really a thing for, in my opinion, for women to be around. Now with what Matchroom is doing and everything else, that's a completely different story. I think it's family friendly. I think it's awesome. But back then it was just not, it's not for a woman to be around.
I'm
So
sure it made it a little easier though that she wasn't like breaking your balls while you were playing.
yeah, I think
You
that
didn't have
that's
to
why
worry
it
about that
worked.
aspect of your life. She was just
Yeah.
there and she understood.
Yeah, she never said a word. Like the whole time I played Dippy, I'd come back to my table and there'd just be two waters there, right?
It's a good
Or there'd
girl.
be a snack there. She never said a word, poor girl. We played for days and she just never said a word. And she never really asked for a quarter. She's independent, has her own job. I'm so lucky. She changed my life, saved my life.
Yeah, so did my wife.
Yeah. Yep, I know it. I know it. Mindy's awesome.
All right, so
So
guys, we're going to break here for a word for our sponsor, and then we'll be right back. We're going to talk about the 2010s and the 2020s with our special guest here, Scott Frost. And thanks to our amazing sponsors who make this possible. So, Scott, I was actually there in person. I witnessed this. You're at the U.S. Open. You're playing Hunter Lombardo,
yeah.
and there winds up being a little bit of a controversial call. Somebody in the crowd gets involved, and it seems like it was a career-changing moment for you. Walk me through that.
Yeah. I think everybody from the outside looking in thinks it's a career changing moment. I get it. I agree. From the outside looking in, what a lot of people don't know is, like I said, I came up under Billy. I did a lot of little commentary. I wasn't good. I looking back, I was not good. But that's what I love about it. I constantly get to improve, and that's what I love,
You've
right? I
helped
like
me
to.
improve with the commentating that you and I have done. Just the advice you've given me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I still have a lot of improvement to do, and I'm going to continue to improve. But my plan before that ever happened, and I do believe in God. I think that's God's intervention. I don't know how that happened. I didn't recognize with everything going on that there was even a camera there. But my plan all along, or goal, my goal, I should say my goal, not my plan. My goal or dream was to work for Mattress. That was my fucking dream.
Shit, it's
I
mine.
Yeah, and now it's a lot of people's. I wish people knew, and I'll touch on the Hunter deal. I wish people really understood the level of production that they do. You understand.
Yeah.
I know you understand. But there's never been anything like that that's touched the professional pool market
No.
in history, period. And I've went through a lot of tours where a lot of promoters told me I was going to get rich and I was going to do this and do that, and they don't talk, they do it. Emily, I'm not kissing her fucking ass.
No,
This woman
she talks the talk,
busts
man.
her ass. She does, and she never stops.
And she's not afraid to put somebody in her place either. I've watched her dress down somebody before, you know.
Well, I think that's what you've got to be, and that's why I don't even look at her as a male or female. It's not. It has nothing to do with it.
She's
She's
the
a
boss.
CEO of a company,
Yeah.
right? And I think in order to get to that level, that you have to do that. You're not going to make a lot of friends a lot of times, and you are going to have people that love you. It's just the way it is, and I think that's in every walk of life. If you're doing something right, that's just the way it's going to be. But touching back on the Hunter scenario, my goal was always to become a commentator. I didn't plan on playing pool when I was 50 or 60. I didn't want to be one of those guys. I always said I wasn't going to be that guy. And I don't plan on being that guy, and I'm not that guy. But we're playing that match, and everybody's seen the video, and maybe you'll insert it here. I don't know. Um, I truly, pretty much 99% certain I didn't touch the ball, and from where he was sitting, he couldn't even see it. We reenacted the scenario
Yeah.
because they didn't move the chairs, and long story short, but I gave up ball in hand, and I pretty much didn't argue it any further. The ref was adamant in her decision, and at the time, that was her decision, and I understood. But from there,
Scott, not to
uh,
cut you off here, 1 second. I just want to insert something. This is a PSA. People from the crowd got involved in that match. If you're not in the match, shut your goddamn mouth. Please continue,
yeah,
Scott.
yeah. And people from the crowd did get involved. And my team didn't get involved until somebody that really hadn't been around pool before, from what I found out later, got involved, said that he saw me touch the ball, but I guess the guy was just a big Hunter fan and new to the sport. And he was a young kid. I met his dad, and I forgave him.
Yeah.
Shit happens, dude. Shit happens, especially in pool. I was past it pretty quickly, actually, but I didn't realize that that would have got me into the final 64 round, or I believe. So, and I was starting to play really good every match. I don't think I missed I think I missed one ball or only missed a ball that
You
whole
were playing
match.
very well that tournament. Yeah.
Yeah, I started playing good. But about 20 minutes after it took place, I didn't even know Emily was watching. I guess that there was obviously a camera on me. Um, didn't know any of that, but I was a little jacked up or messed up from it. I went up to my room and I messaged Emily, right? I'm like, fuck, what do I do? Like, I don't know what to do here. So I messaged Emily, and my emotions were everywhere. I'm an emotional guy. And that's just who I am. And I don't give a shit what you say about it, but I'm an
You
emotional
see
guy.
me get mad.
Yeah. But I'm emotional the other way too. I cry like a baby sometimes, and I don't fuck. Um, but I messaged her, and I'm like, "Hey, would you please give me 5 minutes of your time?" She's like, "Yes, meet me here in 5 minutes or something." Right? I'm like, "Thank God." I just want to vent to her what happened and what I felt like, it's
Yeah.
a little bit of an awkward situation. And so I meet her, and she gives me her time, and I end up fucking crying like a little kid in front of this strong ass woman. And I'm like, I'd like a tear if you were running down my eye because it was a big deal to me at the moment. But I told her, I said, I want you to know that my goal or dream would be to commentate for you guys. And she listened to me. She didn't say, "Okay, we're going to do that. We're going to give you a commentary job." It didn't go down like that. What she did say is, "Okay, we'll see what we can do." Blah blah blah. And then we talked about something else, and then we went our own way. Later that night, I got a message saying that they want me to do a couple of racks with Carl Boys, good friend of mine,
Yeah.
long long time.
We all love
Uh,
Boise.
he's the best. A couple of racks with him, right? So we're at the U.S. Open, obviously in Atlantic City. Awesome event, and I am stoked. I get to do a couple of racks, and so I had never experienced a production level like this before. I did something on ESPN once way back in the day, and some small stuff, but all live streams. So I'd never done anything big. So I get on the mic or get the headset on like we're on now. I got a producer in my ear telling me what's going on and the VTs, the commercials, this, that, the other. Like it's a whole show. And I'm like, holy shit, dude, what's going on? Um, but we're into like the second or third rack, Carl and I are doing, and the producer gets into my ear and or gets in our ear and says, "Hey, go ahead and let Scott finish this match out." And I was like thinking in the back of my head, well, that can't be bad news, right?
No,
I,
exactly. If they're not telling you thanks for your time,
yeah, exactly. I was waiting for it too. I was
come up, shake
definitely,
your hand. Thanks for your time,
y-
Scott. We appreciate it.
yeah, I was waiting after the first rack. So that was so cool. That was just such a special moment for me. We finished it out. Carl knows what it meant to me. We finished that rack out or finished that match out, and then we went our separate ways and went and did whatever. But I've always hung out with Carl, even when he was over in the States 20 years ago, 15
Hmm.
years ago. And then I think I get a message that it just started from there. I think I get a message, hey, you want to do this, and then you want to do this match, and then I got to do the semifinals, and that was where Koping Chung, um, that was really my debut. That was where Koping Chung made every single ball and beat Aloysius Yap
Yeah.
11-0 or 9-0, one of the two. I think. Anyway, he ran made every single ball and played a perfect set, and I was able to do that. And
I'll actually
you know,
add
I
something to that. That during that match, I was sitting first row behind those players,
oh,
and
were you really?
to the left and right of me was Brett from QTech. Uh,
Brett's the best.
Ivan was there, and there's all these top level executives and me. Like somehow I wind up getting like this great seat. I'm getting like text messages like, "Dude, what are you doing with this guy from QTech?" And they were asking me like how I knew all these people. I said I have no idea who these people are. So I just got a really good seat.
That's pretty cool.
And then I started through
Well,
being in the industry. I started knowing everybody from there, but that was like my
yeah, you know who they
introduction
are
to those
now.
people.
Yeah, yeah. And Brett, shout out to QTech and Brett. What Brett and I become pretty good friends, and what amazing stuff they're doing. Ivan Lee and Aramith and Simonis. I've had a great
Yeah,
relationship with Ivan and Simonis and Aramith, and look forward to doing some great things in the future with them. And then, of course, Railbirds TV. I got to shout them out. Kevin Ross and Railbirds.
they got
Ray
a great
Hansen.
production.
They do. Ray Hansen, Pool Action TV.
Yeah, he's
Look,
got a great production too.
he does. I try to keep an open relationship with all of them. Ray really gave me my first runs at commentary in the States long before um Matchroom came along or anything like that. But back to Matchroom, you know, Emily, she to this day, to this very day, there's times where I'm sure she's not thrilled with me or I'm not thrilled with her. But she's great at what she does. She's done everything she said she was going to do. And this woman is so freaking busy. She could be walking past me with four people around her and say, "Scott, tomorrow 2:30 p.m. you're going to be doing this." Eh, or Scott, in 3 months you're going to be doing this. And she's busy and like I'm thinking, well, that's not going to happen probably. She does it, and I do it, right? Which there's something to be said about somebody that does what they say they're going to do.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can't.
it's a follow through. And
It is a follow through.
I've experienced that with her myself when I talked to her about running the Pennsylvania Open.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
she said let's talk, and I thought it was going to be okay, whatever, kid. A week later, I got an email from Matchroom about the Pennsylvania Open and open communications, and the rest from there is history.
well with you, Frank. I mean, like I got fortunate. You hired me to come work for you up there at the PA Open, and for you, you're also that guy, right? You do what you say you're going to do. That's why you're successful in the world of league pool, and you have the following you have. I think that people are bound to be successful as long as you don't get too much or too many irons in the fire, which I'm very guilty at. I
Yeah,
think that you're bound to be successful if you do what you say you're going to do and you treat people with respect, and you are great at that. And you're passionate, right? In which I think you have to be in order to succeed. And that's a big part of why you are where you are and what you're doing.
I appreciate it.
Uh,
Thank you.
yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. So she's done what she said she's going to do, and she's given me a platform. And I don't want to just say she, but at the end of the day, it comes down to her. Matchroom has given me a platform to really grow, and to really be able to show who I am. Not this character in the past, not this big mean guy, which
Allows you
I
to be
have.
genuine.
Yeah, it allows me to be myself. Um, and that's kind of why we're doing this podcast. So for my life to be where it is right now, I'm not making millions of dollars. Times are, pretty tough right now, actually. That being said, I don't believe they're going to be tough forever. I get to work with fucking Jeremy Jones. I get to work with Carl Boys. I get to work with Michael McMullen and the legend Phil Yates. These
Oh,
guys are
remember, I
all,
fanboyed when you introduced me to Phil.
yeah, yeah,
That was my favorite to meet.
yeah. Phil is the
Legend,
best,
yeah,
right?
absolute legend.
And I'll touch on that. A lot of people in the States might not understand how this works, but they've got two color commentators, Matchroom does. And these are the people, and this is a little bit of information that might help. I don't know if I should go into that. But they've got two color commentators, and you rotate them out. That's what they do. Michael McMullen, they're both snooker commentators, world class guys, the best you get.
Yeah,
And I typically work with Michael. Jeremy typically works with Phil, and Carl works with both. Um, Carl works with everybody. But and that's how they set it up, right? They've got two great color commentators, and then they've got the informational based commentators, which is Jeremy, myself, um, and it's just and Carl, and it's just crazy the feedback and the platform it's given me. I hope I'm with Matchroom till the end of days, right? My loyalty lies with them, and I do whatever they ask me to do.
well, that's also led to some other things. You commentated Shane versus Federer.
Yeah, I mean, I've commentated a lot of big stuff. I've did your event. I've done several
Yeah,
ranking events. I've commentated. I'm so grateful. I've commentated Shane versus Federer. Shout out to Rail Yard Billiards and Kyle.
yes,
Kyle is absolutely amazing out there, right? Kyle Ferguson, um, Jason Sword, Alan Sword out there. That's Federer's home turf.
yeah.
Shout out to those guys. Yeah, that Shane versus Federer match was freaking insane.
I
Um,
remember when I called you to ask you to do the Pennsylvania Open. Like I knew we knew each other, we were friendly, but it was becoming a business transaction. And
yeah,
in my mind, I'm like, he's going to say no. He's going to say no. And when I talked to you, you were like, absolutely. And I was like, holy shit! Like you said yes. Like let's make this
yeah, it
happen. And
was.
then that was like my first. That was my first step of knowing that my event could be a great one. That
Oh yeah,
somebody
dude.
your caliber, your level, was willing to come and be a part of it.
Well, it's just like your stream here. Like all your streaming is tip top. It's top notch. All your graphics, everything you do is
Appreciate
really
it.
top notch. But like I said, you put your heart into it. You truly care. You're not trying to make money. You're actually coming out of pocket, spending a lot of money, but you have a lot of good sponsors as well,
I do.
right?
I got some people that got behind me and really helped me out.
I got to meet those people, and they're great people.
Yeah,
So it's really cool. And I'm excited to work with you in the future, man. I'm
absolutely.
excited. It taught me a lot. That was just one of the situations that really kind of transpired to me changing, even though the camera phones came out and all that, changing my image and doing the best to get this stigmatism off of me that he's a dark hustler, that money player. Unfortunately, that was my job. Unfortunately, there was a lot of money in it. Unfortunately, I was really talented and I used it to my advantage. But that's kind of just what I had to do at the time, and I don't want that stigmatism staying with me because I constantly try to live back in my roots. I had a great family. I still have, my brothers and sisters. My mom's, well, she's been in hospice for freaking 6 months now. She's had Alzheimer's for 12 years. My father was my best friend, passed away in 2003. So I try to go back to my roots, right? And I'm so grateful for Matchroom, everything they've done. I'm grateful for Jeremy Jones and Carl Boys putting up with me, getting the opportunity to work with them, work with you, meeting people like Brett and everybody in the industry. It going to Manila, going to London, going to Saudi Arabia, which was absolutely insane. It's been a special ride, and I'm
I know I'll
very
be in
very
Manila
grateful
and
for it.
London with you next year. So,
Well, I don't know if I'll be there,
well, we're
but
gonna be there.
hopefully I'll be there,
We're gonna be there.
but you got to stay on your toes and keep doing a good job. Um, and that's the evolution of Matchroom is they continue to push you and make you better.
Scott, I got two questions for you before we go. If you had to sum up yourself in one word, what would it be?
Complicated.
Complicated.
Yeah.
And a new player coming up in today's pool world, if somebody had to describe Scott Frost to them, what do you think the description would be?
Now, like a new player coming up now.
Yeah, just a fresh 19 or 18-year-old player picked up a pool cue and wants to learn about pool, and he hears, who's this guy, Scott Frost?
Well, I mean, I do a lot of stuff locally. We have a huge community here,
Yeah,
but I'm not big on speaking about myself at all. I think that player would probably say he's got a big heart and goes way out of his way to help people, or tries to at least. I do a lot of things people don't know.
yeah.
I don't do it for gratification.
I
But
wouldn't have said I know.
I got a lot of kids here locally that I'll text on a daily basis, just checking on them. That being said, mental health is a real concern for a lot of people nowadays. And if you're struggling, you need to reach out to somebody. I know a lot of people that are struggling. I personally am not that guy. I'm pretty strong-minded when it comes to that. But you know, you just always want to try and be better every day and help people. I think that's what life's about.
I agree. All right, guys. We had Scott Frost here. Scott, thank you for being on the show. We appreciate it. Thank you for telling us your story here, stories on the road. You and I, of course, will be we'll be linking up soon. But again, we want to thank Scott. Our next episode is going to be coming out soon, and we'll see you then, guys. Thanks a lot. We appreciate it.
Thank y'all. Thank you, Frank.
No problem. Anytime, buddy. Thanks for coming on.
Good night.